the purpose of this talk is really to talk about automation and automate anything with Python and large language models. So of course it's a provocative headline because automating everything doesn't mean you stop thinking. It's already about like, how do I make sure that I navigate any kind of challenges using my knowledge of Python, of coding, and the way that LLMs, the large language models like ChatGPT and OpenAI, Claude, Bard are working. So I'm going to try to give you this this way of thinking that we followed, and and I'm again very happy to be here, because I find what Shah is doing incredible, because there is on the web, on the whole internet, I didn't see anybody committed as he is to like bringing data entrepreneurs together. And I think the cracking the term, the data entrepreneur, was really good, like eye-opening for me, like that Shah was into something. So I really appreciate being here and being able to chat and hang out with you guys today. It's really about hanging out for me. So I also appreciate if you can feedback, any feedback in the chat, any raised hand would be appreciated across this talk. So yeah, a bit about me. I often start describing myself as from where I come from, because I'm kind of coming from the countryside of France. I'm actually right now in the countryside of France in Brittany. So it's an image generated by Midjourney, but it's actually looking like that around here. So it's on the western part of France. I grew up in around farm, nature, so literally everything that really matters, I think, in this life. I was surrounded by it, I was boiling inside for more adventure, more experiences, and so I was driven since my very little age to go travel around the globe and explore. So I first went to India when I was just 18 years old, right after my majority here in France. And then I traveled for a month, went to Singapore, went to China. Then I traveled and lived in South America for a year. And through my journey, I learned about different cultures, different way of speaking, different approach to life, and it was really eye-opening for me. And I think this already opened my mind to how far can we go with language, with technology, and this will head back to Python and how we are doing large language model today. So most of my working life has been around being really close to sea level. So when I went out of the business school that I was in, I was straight going and being the assistant to CEOs of a company that is making virtual prototyping software. And what I learned actually, and we learn by working together, is that the data needs to be taken wherever it is. You need to know who has this Excel spreadsheet, who has this database that actually makes sense for the business to take decisions. And the ability to take good decisions are obviously related to finance. So my major was, how do we attach this to finance? How do we make better financial decision to sustain the business that we are working on? Obviously, this finance and decision making doesn't come without data. So I was head on to Excel, VBA, and PowerPoint presentation for years, and I was frustrated as hell to be confined into a spreadsheet when I was not able to automate anything. So my main driver, my main frustration was about, how do we automate the job that I'm doing right now? Because when I'm taking an Excel spreadsheet from an email, putting it into my drive, automating the fact that I have some data collection and data consolidation at some point to make a graph takes me 80% of my time, and I don't have time to really sit on the numbers and figure out what does this actually mean, and is the data trustworthy? Can I do something with it? Should I present it to my boss, which is the CEO and the CFO? And so if I come with wrong numbers and and I will be screwed basically. And so I had to confront to this need and this longing for automation very, very strongly at the beginning of my career. And when I went to another business that was an oil and gas business, it was a big corporation with big silos of business team and IT teams that I didn't get in my first experience, I also realized that most of the communication and the workflow is broken, and that automation works maybe for IT department in some areas, but doesn't go to business people because they are confined to Excel and tools that are actually not really serving the speed of execution that they need to serve the decision makers that will drive the company forward. So this thing about like frustration to not being able to get data fast was a big motive for me to learn about Python and start investigating around Python and notebooks. So the first thing that I did is I opened a notebook. I downloaded Anaconda like most of the people does. And I started making a few lines of code into my Python notebook. So for anyone who is new to Python, I would suggest for you to do the same. Learn about notebooks. Notebooks are a document that combines text and code. So you can execute the code and you can also document the text. This was for me a high opening, because when you are coming from the business side, you're just making like specification on a Word document, where on the IT side, you want specification, but they are not the same that the business guy are writing, because they're not understanding how to actually transfer what they need into technical language. But you have a discrepancy, and you have two different words that doesn't speak to each other. Whereas with notebooks, you have the ability to have documentation and code at the same place. And so the notebooks are, for me, the most interesting document, and probably underused, because right now, most of the notebooks are used for exploratory analysis in the data science workflow. And then the workflow is broken. You don't know what's going next. So the way to automate tasks with Python, to me, was naturally to go in a notebook and to start doing a script that will probably read a CSV file on my local drive and then automate some kind of consolidation into a big Excel spreadsheet with different files. That was the very beginning of my journey to automation with Python. And when I discovered that I was not able to kind of automate that on a daily basis, so my task was automated, I was able to get this without having to click everywhere, but I wasn't able to schedule this every single morning at 9 in the morning, for example. Then started the frustration of, wait a minute, what should I do to get that notebook running on a daily basis? And I was really stuck by the fact that it was not possible at that time. You didn't have any scheduling system embedded into those notebooks. They are basically a blank page that you can have and then not attached to anything else. So you have a notebook, you have a place where you write your instruction, and then you cannot use them as a robot to automate your work. So the thing that we did with Naas, which means notebooks as a service, is we actually use the technology that Netflix was using for automation using notebooks, and we created what we call in Python a library, a Python library that is essentially a formula that enables your notebook to run on schedule. So we created that formula, nas.scheduler.add, and we added it into a library packaged with other features like notification, webhook, asset sharing, many different kind of heavy lifting kind of tasks that you wouldn't be able to do in a notebook on its own. And we created that library that enabled us to run notebooks on schedule. And when we cracked this, I started my own company. I left and I started servicing big luxury brands, retailers like Lacoste and other kind of companies that you may know the name of. They're like French companies. And my main role was to come to the business people and say, hey, I can automate pretty much everything for you guys, but it's going to be written in Python, and I'm going to be your go-to to then automate the work that is so painful to be done into an Excel spreadsheet by your team every single day. And this was eye-opening, because when you are into this kind of setting, the business setting, you figure out that there is so much dependencies with IT teams that you cannot overcome. And my second main driver was like when I switched back to the technical, connection, technical teams, and I was interacting with technical people, because I was now able to write Python code and kind of understand what they were doing. I figured that the workflow, the backlog, and so much thing that those guys were doing were mostly about like spending too much time also on some small task of deploying some stuff that didn't really understand, and another kind of level of frustration arise to me. Like, we need to figure out a way to make business and technical teams speak about the problem that matters, speak about the actual tasks that are painful, so that the human that are working in those companies can focus on working on the edges. And I think that there is no better way of right now with Python and large language model to be able to achieve that thing, which is going to be relieving people from so much pain inside companies, that they will now be able to see clearly and to focus on the edges and to make their company progress, to make their also their work being more interesting. And I was just closing a call right before now, where we were talking about Accenture and the way that they are implementing a large language model and generative AI into their processes. They didn't fire anyone. They have a very good use case where they actually did so much more work, and they progressed so far away from what they were hoping to go, that they made an incredible quarter, and actually the past 2 quarters were incredible for them, and they could have onboarded more people to do the job, but now they stayed the same team, and they did like 20%, 30% more of what they were expecting to do. So what I see as a personal belief is that with large language model and Python and this idea of automation and blending automation and AI together, we can now create companies that have 10 people and do millions in revenue, because everything would be automated and leveraging large language models. So I really think that we are in an incredible period of time where, if you see the opportunity and not the risk that this can potentially be in companies that don't understand that if they are downsizing their staff, they will hire them anyway later on. They hear me out. They will. I'm pretty convinced that they will hire back people if they fire them now. But anyway, the idea is really to think of this as automation, Python, and association with AI and large language model is the best opportunity that I have ever encountered in my whole life, but not only in my short life, but with everybody that I talk to that are here since the beginning of AI. I'm talking to like people that were working on AI 40, 50 years ago. They think that now is the best time to actually achieve that vision of relieving people from painful tasks that we forced ourselves to do because we didn't have any other choice, and there was no way for speaking naturally to a computer, and now progress and really focus on bigger problems. And we have a lot of problems to fix. So yeah, right now my main focus is to figure out how to create AI system for companies, because the platform that I run enables it, but also because I'm very passionate about this human and technology blending aspect. I think I'm still a young kid trying to figure out how to create an intelligent tool that I can play with, but I'm not the only one who wants to do that. Like every CEO around here, I think, wants to have a kind of chat GPT implemented with their own document, with their own values and ways of doing stuff. And this particular pain and need will only be greater in the future. So I think that the point that I want to make as an introduction is that you need to go and think further 5-10 years from now and think about how automation, Python, and language model can make you win in the future. So that's my main point here. But to start automation, automating anything, you need to think, you need a strategy basically, and you need to start with the end in mind. So what are we trying to do when we are looking for Python and LLMs? We are looking for different things. We're looking for data cleaning. We are looking for text classification, sentiment analysis. We want to analyze images. We want to automate reports. We want to do web scraping. We want to automate workflows. We potentially want to do automated trading and finance. We want to automate content generation, content analysis. We want to potentially have chatbots that actually answers to our customers in a nice way. And we want to automate the machine learning model deployment, which is already like very painful to do. So the 10 major points that where LLMs and Python can be associated together are those 10s. They are mostly, of course, related to a business setting, but in your own life, I have created like some kind of automation that are really interesting around language model and Python, where I can read my emails, know where those, like who is talking to me, what emails I should answer to first, because I have given some set of instruction to a language model. I can analyze all my contacts, classify my contacts. There is many different ways that it can also apply to your individual self. And I'm keen to talk to you about that in the last in the next part of the conversation. What the point that I want to make right now, getting into the technicalities, is what we figured out at Naas is that automating anything with Python and language model comes down to breaking a problem into two simple buckets. Is it pre-processing or is it post-processing? So if you're like interested about learning more about that, think of it as pre-processing being all the tasks that we need to process in advance to have some data ready to go. And for post-processing, it's like every task that you will delegate to probably a consumer, someone that will actually change the filters and figure out what exactly he needs to do, because some data has been already populated inside a dashboard, for example. So how we address this is in thinking, okay, pre-processing is about using Python and language model in a pipeline. So you will probably get all the posts from your social media content. You will use language model to analyze text and probably give you some recommendation about how you could have written this thing better. And that would be your pipeline. You will pre-generate this and you will have it ready for consumption when a data consumer, that can be you, will try to query the information and come up with a query like, hey, how did my post or how did my latest content did for the last 10 days? And then the data will be already there, pre-processed, ready to fire. But then when you have the report, what you want to do is you want to use LLM to do post-processing actions. So you have the data set. Imagine ChatGPT, you have the data set coming into your chat, and you want to ask more questions like, hey, please tell me what was the post that was the most successful. And in this most successful post, can I create 10 more? So this is post-processing, but this is also automation. This is something that would have taken you time, a very long time to do. It's the LLM is already embedding some kind of automation into your thinking process. And this happened most likely through an LLM that has a digital application on top of it, that has a kind of like ChatGPT. It's kind of a digital interface that enables you to interact with the language model. So thinking about like pre-processing and post-processing and being very thoughtful about where you put the line is something that I really recommend to do. So when we're thinking about pre-processing, just to define a little bit more, we are thinking about fine-tuning a model with personalized AI experience. That can be something very powerful. So you can fine-tune a model so that when you will ask him question like generate some content, it will generate content like looks like you. So if you train with your own data a language model, it will spit out words that will sound like you. That's one thing that we discovered that is very powerful. The second is leveraging like retrieval augmentation. You want to know where your documents are. So you don't want just the model to spit words like you would have spoken. You want to reference to a certain topic. So if you reference to a certain topic, you better have your documents ready, pre-processed, and then retrieve them. later on down the line, maybe in an interface. So that's the second thing. And for the vectorization, it's another kind of like part of the RAG system that is very specific. But vectorizing enabling you to actually like create a very like a numeric kind of layer, zeros and one that you can kind of trigger. And I think that this aspect is a bit complex right now, and it's enabled a lot of data handling. But there is so much talk on vectorization right now, and not so much into just leveraging inserting documents inside language model and getting already a lot of information out of it. Right now, we are limited by the context window of a language model. I don't know if you have seen, but like the context window is a big topic. But Claude is having 100K context window, meaning that you can put almost a book inside it. So I believe that the most simple approach are actually the most efficient and the best one for adoption. And that's why I think all the thing that we heard, if you're into language model and Python about vectorization, are a bit like overwhelming right now, when we didn't even leverage as much as we should the power of the context window and the data that we can fit inside those things. So that's another take. So here is basically how we do it at Naas. I will just share the screen, and probably later we can go into the demos. But essentially, we have structured a way for building notebook pipelines. So every notebook that we have, every template that we have, is actually a logic gate. So you will have one template for connecting to a certain tool and retrieving a data set. You will have another template for taking that data set and creating like a bunch of ideas for content generation. So we made this very simple approach to like components and data product building through our Naas platform and framework. And it looks like a bit like that. So if you can see pipeline here, you will have collection phase, cleaning phase, and every phase that you can see here is a notebook that is actually running it behind the scene. That is essentially, as I said, a logic gate. So that's how we do the pre-processing activities. And for post-processing activities, what we mostly focus on is harnessing the power of functions and commands. So functions are, I don't know if you have heard about this thing that OpenAI has been putting together, but it can basically allow the language model to execute certain set of actions for you. But when you do actions, you actually don't want the LLM to do things that you don't want it to do. So it can be very permissive, and the transparency and the auditability of what you do is questionable. So what we think was more interesting instead is to create commands that are very intentional and very specific about the tasks that you want to do. And this command, is actually a notebook that is connected to a chat interface. I will show it to you later on. That's how we approach the problem of like post-processing, like enabling inside a chat interface, inside a digital application that has a chatbot, to trigger actions based on certain keywords or certain very specific commands that you want to do. The second part of this thing is about, like, for post-processing, is about customizing model through pre-prompting. So I take the reference of OpenAI and this custom instruction, but more broadly, you want to constrain the AI to do, the language model to do, to not do, or to do a certain set of actions that you want to limit. And the system prompt, which is before any conversation happen, is really key. If you can hack this system prompt to do and to be in a certain narrow mindset, then you can open the doors to a lot of good, like, post-processing activities. Let me give you an example, maybe around the use case that I've done 2 days ago, where I managed to change the system prompt so that some kind of words will never be here in some content that I want to generate. So this is a kind of engineering that you do post-processing of your data, so that some words or some topics will never be generated. For the example of content creation in that particular example. So the third aspect of things for me is seamless integration of into your existing workflows. So you want to connect to tools. You want to make sure that everything is set up for you when you interact with the language model. You want to have made all your connection with all your different tools so that you can trigger pretty much any kind of processes. And like for us, it has been really key because we saw the need when you push data to an interface with the language model where you have like a graph or anything, you want to start a workflow from here. So yes, you're going to push some data to me and you're going to analyze my data. You're going to give some graph, like you can see in language model, this is happening with like code interpreter and so, but what do you do after that? What task are you doing? How do you trigger tasks that actually make sense? How do you do take actions? And this is a challenging part of the workflow automation. So I think that the key here is to think about it as it's automation is not only about full workflow automation. It's about making sure that the boring tasks, the boring clicks, and everything that you do that doesn't actually add value to your work are like delegated to an AI system. And that's the sense of Python and language model, where Python and language model makes so much sense. So in that picture, I'm sharing a bit about the Naas chat platform. We created a clone, like an alternative clone to ChatGPT, where you have multiple models that are accessible right here, start items and everything. I can talk about it later on, and some commands, very specific commands on tools. Because once I have the result of some kind of interaction with the language model, I want to trigger some actions. And those are now under development. We are having a few like customers that are already trying this out, and it's only the beginning of our journey here. So I may have more insight in the future, but right now this is what we get. And to end the short presentation that I wanted to do with you, and to really, I just wanted to focus on like understanding this pre-processing and post-processing. I think it's very key. If you want to do automation with Python language model, you need to know where you want to put some activities of your automation. You also need to think of it as a three-way problem, like a universal Trinity kind of problem that, you know, the number three is everywhere, like back end, middleware, front end. You can have it, you can see the same kind of pattern emerging inside the way that language model can be used. So let me just tell you a short story here, just coming back to the content creation part, where we are serving a CEO. The CEO wants to generate content, more content, but it cannot really do it because it doesn't have so much time. And so what we propose to him is to be able to make some kind of document retrieval. So we collected everything that he said on the web, maybe on YouTube and on different videos, stored that and used it to generate content. But we figured out that the content that we were creating just by retrieving the document were not enough. We had to do some system prompt engineering and say, hey, you're going to be the content assistant of this guy, and you're going to be using the information that I'm going to put to you through the document that I'm going to inject into you to create interesting content. But this was not enough. It was missing some other part. And the other part that was missing is actually the fine-tuning of a model beforehand, where you want the model to actually be trained on the words and the way that the guy is speaking, so that when the content is generated, it really sounds like him. So the three kind of key aspects for me of using Python and language model is to understand that if you leverage language model, you need to have, and you want amazing results in your automation and something that feels really natural to you, you should have some kind of thinking around those three parts of the problem. How do I make sure that I know what the models, the language model know what I am expecting? How does the language model can communicate like me? And how does the language model can actually know where the key documents that I want to use are and how to leverage them? So that's pretty much a wrap on the thing that I wanted to share with you. We are opening the gate with Naas with a lot of different use cases. We are impersonating now like celebrities with our notebook where we can like fine tune the prompt, the temperature, the stuff, and then push it to the chat models that I've shared with you here. I'm happy to go into the application if you want to learn more about it. But essentially what you need to think of here is like this ability to have only this on the same interface, the leveraging Python and language model with this. Basically what we did is just wrapping up an interface around it and some kind of tooling and processes makes it so easier to so much easier to focus on working on the edges, working on the challenges, on the deep challenges of content generation, report automation, workflow automation, model deployment. This removes all the noise around the technology to really focus on executing the right workflows and figuring out how to add value. So yeah, I think that's a wrap for me. I'm happy to discuss more. This is really opening doors to a lot of things. So you guys let me know what you want to discuss further, and I'm happy to go inside this.
Thank you so much, Jérémy. Let's give him a round of applause virtually or on mute with our cameras off. Yeah, let's just open it up for Q&A. You know, I'll just like to say, like, off the bat, like, I find your kind of take and perspective like super inspiring, like how
Thank you.
This is a very unique time that we're living in, and now is like all the kind of sages of AI from 40, 50 years ago. They're like, man, I wish I was young right now. So
yeah, that's what I was saying. Yeah, those guys that I'm talking to, they've been there like in the 70s, 80s, 90s, and they're like, oh, I wish we could have had that now, but you're so lucky that you're young and full of energy right now because you can crack that.
Yeah, so that's super exciting. Yeah, I saw a few hands go up. Let's open it up for questions. You know, the talk was pretty like high level and didn't go into the weeds, but I'm sure Jérémy will be happy to talk more technical details if anyone has questions about that.
Yeah.
Let's see. Tan has a question. Go ahead.
Hey, Jérémy. Sorry, I joined a little bit late, so I'm not sure if this is something you covered in the earlier parts. But let's say we wanted to like kind of get the voice of someone to like have generative content like emails. If we wanted to get that from YouTube, would we need to transcribe the video first, or how would we kind of start that process, just like as a general overview?
So just let me know. I'm not sure I understood the use case exactly. So you want to use the emails? You want to use the email to generate some kind of voice? Just let me just make sure I understood.
Yeah, so like let's say I want to mimic our CEO's like voice kind of, and then like so like that way if I want to send marketing emails but it seems like it's coming from him, so it kind of mimics his like talking style, but you know, it's just me writing them.
Yes. So what you want to do is you want to take the most natural piece of data that you get from this guy. So if he's talking to, you know, I don't know, if he's if he's into stock, he will probably talk to shareholders and have some shareholders meetings at some point. You want to grab that data. You don't want to grab any other data. You just want to figure out what are the actual data, like data sets that will make sense into convincing people. So it's a bit of social engineering if you think about it. You need to think and to be like smart enough to focus on, okay, what this guy is doing is talking to this crowd, this other crowd, the emails, probably not internal emails. He will probably talk short and do some small instruction. You don't want to get that. You want to focus on like the long-term, long trail kind of content where he's explaining stuff and being convincing. So I would really focus on making some sort of like open source intelligence kind of thing beforehand, if whatever is around in the wild, and then come back to internal information, because you always speak better when you have to speak publicly. So this will be the data set that you would take. Then the question is, should you use some kind of meta prompt and just push it into the system prompt to have it like generate content and try it out? You should start with this. But if you want to have a completely automated thing, you want to keep a data set that is fine-tuned So you want to transform whatever text data that you have into some key value pair as a data set, because this is what the LLM will take as a fine-tuning data set. It will have a strong, I don't know how much you know about that, but you have a strong data model that you need to respect. So then the question is about figuring out how to do question and answering. But this can be also automated with a bunch of Python code, where you can just automatically from a corpus of text get to that like key value data set, which is essentially question and a completion.
Okay, that's awesome. Yeah, I think I'll have to do some more research on that key value answer set stuff, but I appreciate the response there.
Feel free to like, I'm happy to like just discuss about those kind of use cases of the grid if you want. It's really something that I do every single day right now, because what mostly we do with Naas is like talking to CEOs and figuring out, okay, you want to build your AI system? Let's start with you. Because when you talk to CEOs and people that are running businesses, they're like, hey, you know what? I'm the only one that actually connects the dots. So it's kind of painful to me to do this, and this. And you start with like, hey, why don't we try to also create some knowledge base that people can ask you questions virtually, and it will like come out with what's your take on this particular topic. So you can create good content, good marketing material, good answers to email, good briefs. For any kind of stuff. So this is really something crazy that we figured out just a couple of weeks back when we started like going to market and talking to a lot of like CEOs and companies that are trying to figure out how to create their AI system and leverage Python, leverage LLM to scale their future self, their future version of their company.
Yeah, that's awesome. Like specifically for our company, our CEO tends to like talk with people directly on a Facebook group. So I'm sure I could use, those responses and questions directly.
Yes, exactly. But be intentional about the response that you take. It's the good old data mining still is the key. You need to be a good data miner. You need to mine the data. You need to figure out, not take all the stones, take the gold part. Because what most of the enterprise I've been doing for the past 10 years is creating this modern data stack stuff. And this is about collecting 100% of the data. So whatever you have data, you get it, and then you store it, and then you figure out later how to use it. So this is not the paradigm that we need for building an AI system. We need to really focus on the gold data.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Thanks.
Welcome.
So do we have any more questions? I know we went a minute over, but I want to make sure people have a chance to ask their questions if they have it. Let's see. Cool. So Michael has a question. So I'll read it so we can get in the recording. But when would you recommend Langchain versus LlamaIndex, and at what
we use both
might cause them to potentially become unstable in production?
We use both. Langchain, LlamaIndex, we are having our own ways. So basically, this is not an absolute thing. Langchain is mostly here for helping you develop use cases, but it's working on some specific sets of use cases in production. We use them in a very specific manner. For LlamaIndex, I really like the way that they operate under this Trinity kind of stuff that I was talking to, like the fine-tuning of the model, the system prompt and thing. They are really advanced on that in that regard. So I really like how they do it. But becoming unstable in production means not having enough trust into either the system that you've put in place to ensure that this works, or either the data. The thing is like always the data. Basically, we are so cautious at Naas about the data that we pick and how we train this that we know that when we feed something to the language model, it's gonna be something good. Like we were not going to an extended amount of like data that is probably unused. We really are focused on beforehand pre-processing, making sure everything is ready, and then we leverage the LLM to actually give more insights on the data.
Any more questions? That was a good question.
I hope that answered to you, Michael. Okay.
Let's see. If there are no more questions, I do have one. Jérémy, we've spoken a few times before, and I didn't really get the impression until right now, like of how much of a kind of practitioner you are of automation and how like much of an expertise that you have in that. And so you've been talking about how like you've been working with a lot of CEOs kind of toward this like text generation, content generation task. What are some other like common automation tasks that you're seeing these days that maybe some people can start thinking about of incorporating in their business or helping other businesses by solving that problem?
Yeah, let me share my screen with you. You will be able to see the platform at the same time while I'm answering this question. I'm going to tell you a bit more about also what we are at. So yeah, I share my screen now. So yeah, as you can see here, so what we are doing, this is the platform. And so the use case that we see are basically around this. So I generate content every single day. This is creating some traction on some topics, and I know I will understand the topic and probably repost on those topics that actually attract my audience. When I do this, I want to also move to the growth aspect of things, where I would take out some interaction, some link, like some comments, some messages on LinkedIn that people like kind of write to me because they are interested into the topics, but I want to match it with my ICP. So I would use language model to match with my ICP if my ideal customer profile, if those are people that I want to like actually push to my sales pipeline. When I'm pushing it to the sales pipeline, I want to have this kind of like automation and be like, hey, this is your current situation. And then start talking about what should I do to improve the motion, the sales motion. So sales is a big thing. Operation is a big one. When you have like all those operational stuff going on, like on GitHub or on different stuff, you want to be able to blend the data together and access it to be more efficient internally. Finance is about getting your Stripe, getting your receipts into your Google Drive automatically, and then analyze it. And open data is around like how good can you understand the world around you? Like how can you get signals from the field that you didn't have that could have given you a competitive advantage for understanding your market? So it's basically market intelligence and everything. So the use cases that we see are basically baked into what we are doing right now. And you can, in the platform where you go to Naas and you can sign up for this alpha version, you can look at those different demos where under each of those demos and those engines, there is a data set. And what we are aiming at doing is to like put all those different like engines for different domain into one big model we call ABI. And ABI stands for Artificial Business Intelligence. And what we are currently trying to figure out is how to blend those like reports that are popped up every single day into this stack to give you the latest information about your business and the triggering of workflows to take actions on this data that you retrieve.
Yeah, that's really cool. I'm definitely gonna have to like check out this new interface for Naas. I could see like a lot of like freelancers out there. Like the idea just came to me. It's like I could just use Naas to like automate tasks and then just provide that as a service. Like
that's what we are going to do. That's what we are building. That's what we hope to build, a community of people that are like leveraging this kind of technology, because it's essentially a chat GPT interface where you have different models. So you can try different models, and you can also create your own plugins because you use notebooks in the backend. You kind of use notebooks to create your own plugins, craft your own thing, then leverage it and be much more productive. So we hope that our growth is going to be like first to like individuals, freelancers, people who know Python, people who know how to implement this into processes, and then eventually have a bigger impact.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's really cool. All right, everyone, let's thank Jérémy once again for a fantastic session. We have a survey for this session. So if you have, 30 seconds, just give us your feedback. Tell us if you got value from it. We will be sharing the recording in the Discord in the past events channel and also on our YouTube channel. And with that, thank you guys again for joining. Thank you, Jérémy. And then we're going to have another event. We're actually going to have 2 events next week. We're going to have one event in the Discord where Sam Cialik will be talking about his startup, Seraph. And then we're actually going to have an in-person meetup in Dallas, Texas, next weekend. So if you're around Dallas or willing to travel to Dallas, we'd love to kind of meet you in person and see you at the networking event. All right, with that, thanks again, everyone. Thank you, Jérémy.
See you.
Take care. Bye.